The sky was bruised purple and streaked with blood, red clouds as I stood at the edge of my porch, staring at the worn, cracked sidewalk below. The smell of rain, thick and heavy, hung in the air, but the downpour hadn't come. The world around me felt like it was holding its breath, like everything was teetering on the edge, waiting for something to break. I had lived in this house for over 40 years, through good times and bad, with the woman who once called me, the love of her life, and the daughter who now refused to speak to me. But nothing had prepared me for what happened that night. The night my daughter, Abigail, spent every penny of our life savings on a man who was nothing but trouble. And that in turn set into motion a chain of events that would change all of our lives forever. Abigail had always been the wild one. She was a force of nature, full of fire and dreams, constantly chasing after things she couldn't quite grasp. As a child, she had been impossible to rein in, always running ahead of everyone else, pulling her family along with her. She was my only child, and I had tried my best to protect her, to guide her. Though, looking back, I realized I had only ever done what I thought was right, never what she needed. We had our share of difficult times. When her father passed away from cancer when Abigail was just 12, she became more distant, more restless. And then, like a flash of lightning out of nowhere, she met Michael. He was everything I'd warned her about. Dark eyes, a rough around, the edges attitude, and a criminal history that I could see written all over him, if only she cared to look. But she didn't. For her, he was a fix to her broken world, a distraction from the grief that haunted her since her father's death. For me, he was a storm cloud that threatened to drown us all. At first, it was small things. She'd disappear for hours, then come home with vague explanations and a set of frantic eyes. But it all came to a head the day she wiped out our savings. Money I had spent my entire life earning, scrimping and saving to ensure she'd have a chance at a good life. I had no idea at first what had happened. She wasn't home when I arrived from work, but a sense of dread crept in my chest as I opened the bank statement. That's when it hit me like a slap to the face. A $25,000. Gone. I tried to call her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. The night felt endless, like the hours stretched longer with each passing minute. When she finally came home, her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and her face was pale, as though she had just witnessed something she couldn't unsee. Michael was with her, of course. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know what else to do." Her voice trembled, her lips barely able to form the words. "Michael, he's in trouble. I had to help him." And just like that, the floodgates opened. In that one moment, I saw everything I had feared for years: my daughter, vulnerable, broken, willing to sacrifice everything. Us, her family, her future, for someone who never cared about her in the first place. Michael had gotten himself mixed up in something bigger than either of them could handle. And the money? It wasn't just for a flown, as she claimed. It was to pay off a debt to people I couldn't even imagine. I asked her where she had gotten the idea that this was the only way, and she stared at me, blinking as if she couldn't quite hear me, like I was speaking in another language. In the midst of all this, I wasn't the only one affected. My grandson, Lucas, a bright 15-year-old with a head on his shoulders, far more sensible than either of his parents combined, had been staying with us for the summer. He had heard everything, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of his eyes on me as I struggled to hold it together. Lucas was, in many ways, the child I wished Abigail could have been. He had the calm, steady presence of someone who saw through the smoke and mirrors of life. And as his mother spiraled out of control, he became the anchor we didn't deserve. The next day, Lucas found me sitting at the kitchen table, my hands shaking as I stared at the empty bank account. "Grandma," he said, his voice steady, "I need to talk to you about something." I looked up at him, my heart heavy with guilt. "What is it, Lucas?" He sat down across from me, his eyes fierce. "I'm not going to let her do this to you." I didn't understand what he meant at first. "What do you mean? You're not going to let her?" He didn't wait for me to finish the sentence. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to make her see what she's doing. I was about to protest, but his resolve was stronger than mine. Lucas had always been the quiet, analytical type, and though he was only 15, there was something in him, a fire and anger, that burned just as brightly as Abigail's had when she was his age. But unlike his mother, he wasn't reckless. He wasn't blinded by desperation. He was determined. Later that evening, Lucas confronted Abigail. He didn't shout. He didn't make demands. He simply spoke the truth. "Mom, you're ruining everything," he said, his voice cracking just a little. "You're throwing away everything that matters for someone who doesn't even care about you." For the first time in years, Abigail stopped. She looked at him. And really looked at him. And for a moment, the rage and defiance in her eyes faltered. She didn't cry. She didn't collapse into my arms like I had expected. But there was something about that moment. A flicker of realization that maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong. "Michael isn't worth it," Lucas continued. "You're worth so much more than this. Don't do this to yourself. Don't do it to Grandma. You're not just ruining your life, you're ruining all of ours." There was silence then, thick and heavy. Abigail stood there, the weight of his words pressing down on her like a 1,000-pound stone. Michael, who had been standing in the doorway, shifted uncomfortably. He didn't say a word. In that moment, I think he knew that Lucas had won. Abigail finally spoke, her voice soft and hollow. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could fix things." And for the first time in years, she broke down. Not for herself, not for the mess she had made, but for Lucas, for what she had put him through, for what she had taken away from him, from all of us. The tears came fast then, the dam finally giving way. And in the quiet that followed, I saw something shift in her. A quiet, heartbreaking surrender. We never got the money back. But that night, Abigail made a choice. She kicked Michael out, packed his things, and told him to never come back. And though it took time, lots of time, for things to heal, the hardest part was over. My daughter had finally made the choice to fight for something better, and Lucas, that brave boy, had been the one to show her how. As for me, I watched from the sidelines, torn between sadness and pride. Abigail was still my daughter, and I loved her more than anything. But sometimes, love wasn't enough. Sometimes it took someone from the outside, someone not as broken, to show us where we went wrong. And in that moment, Lucas had saved us all. My daughter spent all our savings on a criminal boyfriend, but my grandson, that young man, showed her how to save herself. And in the end, that was all any of us needed.